Welcome. This is David Bowles, Human Meme. Today's topic, Camp Kitaki and One Tin Soldier.
Go ahead and hate your neighbor. Go ahead and cheat a friend. Do it in the name of heaven. You can justify it in the end. There won't be any trumpets blowing come the judgment day. On the bloody morning after, one tin soldier rides away.
One Tin Soldier by Coven. It was the summer of 1973 in Nebraska. I was all of 8 years old, and the song at the top of the Billboard charts was One Tin Soldier, sung by the band Coven. Now, One Tin Soldier originally debuted in the 1971 movie Billy Jack, and that was a big hit, both movie and song, and the song was all over radio airplay for a year. Then Coven re-recorded and re-released the same song, One Tin Soldier, in the summer of '73. And they scored a second big hit with the exact same song. Oh, and sharing that with you, I remember I also had a favorite book as a child, a book about a tin soldier who was lost and then melted. It was sort of a sad book. It had an early type of hologram on the front, I remember. I read that book every day when I was even littler than 8 years old, and it's interesting how the old intersects with the new. We create circles within circles without ever really realizing what we've left open and what we've already closed. Until something, a memory, a friend, a flash of insight, the recollection of a song lyric, shows us the completeness of our lives. So anyway, I came about thinking about the summer of '73 when Apple iTunes recently presented me to listen to an album of one-hit wonders from K-Tel Records. And that wonderful one-hit wonder album was filled with so many great songs and memories, and One Tin Soldier was one of those songs. And once again, I guess for the third time, Coven had re-recorded One Tin Soldier for that K-Tel album release, just as had all the other one-hit wonders on the same album. K-Tel was, and appears to still be, always about making money and bundling old songs for maximum profit. Coven's One Tin Soldier had such meaning for me, such a specific scenescape for me that I wanted to share it with you. I remember I was sent off for the first and last time to a day camp called Camp Kitaki in Nebraska in the summer of '73. Camp Kitaki was a YMCA camp founded in 1953 in Louisville, Nebraska. Now, here's an odd thing you need to know about Nebraska. The state has weird pronunciations of some standardly spelled names and words. Yes, Louisville is spelled just like that great city in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky. But in the good life state, the great Nebraska way, well, we Nebraskans pronounce the town Louisville. For what reason, I do not know. And the strange pronunciations don't end with Louisville. Oh no, we also have Beatrice as well. Now, Beatrice is spelled like the woman's name, Beatrice, Beatrice, Beatrice. I'm even mispronouncing it now. Beatrice is the name. But the Nebraska pronunciation is just plain silly at Beatrice. And when I worked in radio in Lincoln, Nebraska, as a young teenager, it was always fun to watch and listen how new out-of-towner announcers were always taken through the odd Nebraska pronunciation guide list, and Beatrice was always the one big mistake that always got through on the air, and pronounced wrongly for the region, but rightly in the rest of the free world as Beatrice. And listeners would call in and correct, and they'd have to go on the air and say, I apologize, I'm new here, I know it's Beatrice. And I confess, just as happened here with you, when I first moved to New York 30 years ago, I had a good friend named Beatrice. People called her Bee, but I preferred to use her full name, Beatrice, and of course, I often called her Beatrice, to the shock and dismay of her Beatrice friends and family. I was corrected for mispronouncing her name often, and I finally wised up and called her Beatrice and wiped the Nebraska Beatrice from my mouth. And today I still apologize for that flaw in my regional dialect. So Camp Kitaki was about 30 minutes outside of Lincoln towards Omaha, pretty much located right between Lincoln and Omaha. Omaha was an hour drive. Louisville and the camp was about half that. And to this day, I really have no hard memories of Camp Kitaki as a camping experience. I was not much of a camper. I think we played soccer a lot, but I do remember a couple of things. One, I remember looking for rusted-out railroad spikes near the camp that some of us boys would collect and take on the bus home each day. And then, getting on that yellow school bus to take us home to Lincoln, we'd be holding a shirt full of rusty railroad spikes we'd found. And if you were ever 8 years old in the Midwest, you know what I mean about carrying heavy stuff in your shirt by folding up the bottom of your shirt to hold the heavy stuff and giving you a rusty railroad spike iron belly. Some of the camp counselors were cool with the iron belly pregnancy look, while other counselors, not much older than us, the uncool kids, made you get off the bus and dump your spikes before you got back on the bus. And when you had to dump your cash, you always made sure to hide your spikes in a safe drop spot for the next day pickup, in the hope of having a different camp counselor on the bus the next day. And then that next day, you wore a sweatshirt to camp, heavier, thicker, instead of a regular t-shirt, so you could carry home yesterday's railroad spike cash and the one you planned on collecting and adding to that day. And if you wonder, what was an 8-year-old in Lincoln, Nebraska going to do with hundreds of rusty railroad spikes? The answer is simply this. What isn't an 8-year-old going to do with 100 railroad spikes? And my human meme friend, if that isn't a clear enough answer, let me put it this way. You had to have rusty railroad spikes just to have them, to own them, to have them in your possession. So nobody else could claim your discovery. Nobody else could take your place in history. And nobody else in the world could say they were there instead of you. Your railroad spikes drove you back into the land, connected to gravel and wood and salt and chalk and the salt pond and, of course, the trains, the soot, the dirt, the sound of the whistle, and the adventure of finding all the iron spikes that lifted from the earth to find their way to freedom inside your sweatshirt iron belly. The second memory of Camp Kitaki is this. Singing together as a group of kids. Singing One Tin Soldier on the bus ride back to Lincoln in the summer of '73. And for some reason, we didn't really sing it on the way to camp, probably because it was too early in the morning and half of us were still asleep. But by the afternoon, after playing soccer all day, we were all awake and we wanted to kill the long ride home. Now, if you are not familiar with the song, One Tin Soldier is not simply sung. The chorus is memorable. The melody varied. I opened this episode with the chorus to the song, but the rest of the lyrics are a little more complex. One Tin Soldier is a story song, and you have to get the story right and in order for the story to make sense. Now, as you may know, or even remember, 8-year-olds do not have a long or even a very good memory. So the camp counselors had to teach us the song, reteach us bit by bit until we could all sing it together as one. And the song is also quite a dramatic morality play in itself, filled with blood and sorrow and war and killing and regret. And the song taught us those lessons in 3 minutes and 38 seconds. And we'd sing that song over and over again on the way back to Lincoln, at least 7 times each trip. One Tin Soldier was one of 2 bus songs that entertained us Nebraska kids across our childhood. The other 2 were also sort of story songs, 99 Bottles of Beer on the Wall, and the other was Bob Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind. Now, 99 Bottles was more of a time killer than a great morality play. I could never get past singing the 97th bottle of beer on the wall before I was out of breath and bored with it, and I'd just stop singing. Blowin' in the Wind, however, was the favorite of the local Methodist church and its youth group gatherings. And that reminds me, one of my old girlfriend's mother once told me that the Methodists were the most unreligious of all the religions. And she claimed that as a lapsed Catholic and mother of 10 children. And anyway, with Blowin' in the Wind, you had to sing the whole song as a good Methodist, and you had to sing it quite self-righteously and slowly and sorrowfully and in tune. And that meant singing all the verses in the right order and not just the bits you had sort of remembered from hearing it on the radio. And you had to have at least one Methodist kid on the official Methodist auto harp accompanying you. But One Tin Soldier was a special song and really engaging to sing, because once you knew the lyrics and once you sang it a few times, you really did feel like you accomplished something greater than yourself, or finding the answers a-blowin' in the wind. The One Tin Soldier chorus tended to be shouted on the bus and not actually sung, but we were still making the point. Plus, as good Methodists, we secretly loved the slight dig One Tin Soldier took at organized religion in the choral line about,
"Do it in the name of heaven. You can justify it in the end."
and my human meme friend, nobody on that bus or off the bus could yell at us for singing that line about justifying heaven because it was part of the song, and we didn't write the song. Blowin' in the Wind was not a multi-level ratting out about the hypocrisy of living a false faith. With One Tin Soldier, we learned a lesson. We sang our morality. We cemented our place in society as a fair and aware people sharing a right fable about war and about getting along with other folk. There are few songs in the childhood canon of singable bus songs that have the same eternally shared thrill as that of One Tin Soldier. And if you don't believe me, just take a quick day trip back to Camp Kitaki with me in Louisville, Nebraska, with our friend Beatrice from Beatrice, and tune up your auto harp as well.
So the people of the valley sent a message up the hill, asking for the buried treasure, tons of gold for which they'd kill. It came an answer from the mountain. With our brothers we will share all the secrets of our mountain, all the riches buried there. Now the valley cried with anger, "Mount your horses, draw your sword," and they killed the mountain people. So they won their just reward.
Thank you for listening. Be a Human meme.